Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited for everything that's happening this week. I am very much looking forward to the next 30 minutes that we're going to spend together, diving in and learning more about something that's very, very cool. I love saying vibe coding, a spoiler right there. But for anybody joining in, welcome. We would love to have you join in the chat, ask questions, everything. My name is Rachelle Dené Poth, and I will be kind of your host, but also speaking as well today as we are talking about Hour of AI, thinking about computer science, Education Week, and all things related to coding. But I am happy to be joined today by Kelly-Schuster Paredes, who is from Crest School. And so I'm going to toss it over to you, Kelly, to give a little bit of a background about yourself.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. This is great. I'm happy to support Imagi and Dora and Beatrice and the team. So I'm a computer science teacher at Pinecrest School. I'm also the educational data and AI specialist, and I'm also the co-host of the Teaching Python podcast. And as most teachers, we can say, and I'm also, and I'm also, and I'm also. And yes, I've been at Pinecrest about 9 years and just loving it, everything that we do there.
Well, I love hearing about all the things, and you're right. Like, we do so many different things. People are always ask me, do you ever sleep? Yes, of course. But whenever it comes to things like this, when we're talking about AI and coding and STEM and STEAM and all of these different topics that I love, I am a tech kid from, well, we won't say how long ago it was, but it's fascinating to see all of the possibilities that are available to us as educators, but also for students. And I know for myself, years ago when I started with like the hour of code, I really just thought about it as 1 hour and then that was it. Not realizing like that's the first hour to get you to start, to continue and to build it into your practice, regardless if you're like me, a Spanish and a STEAM teacher. It's for everybody at all levels. And so now we're looking at Hour of AI. So we're going to dive into it with something that is pretty new. For a lot of people, this might be the first time hearing about it. It's, when I first started to learn about it, I was like, oh, wait, like, do you have to do a certain dance for that or something like that, like the vibe? And before we went live, I had a no pun intended comment about vibe coding. But I know that people will be amazed if you have not taken that dive into it. You will learn a lot today in the time we spend here together. But first, I am going to ask the big question. And for those of you joining in, whether on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on X, or YouTube, please answer, participate, share resources. But the first question I'm going to toss out there to Kelly and also to anybody listening to share some ideas as well is, like, what is a vibe coding, first of all? And then when we think about it, like, how does it make an impact? How does it transform a student's coding experience? And I will add in a little bit of commentary later on, but let us know a little bit about what it is.
Well, sure. So vibe coding was actually coined by Andre Kaparthi. He's had his hand in a couple of things, OpenAI, Meta, quite a great inspirational person, I guess, in the coding world for us. And vibe coding is where you kind of sit back and you let the LLM and your text just kind of code for you and you go with the flow. And it's this idea that we now have these large language models that are built on Python, my passion, and we can tell these models what we want to do, and it can produce things for them. And it really does two things for students. It kind of gives them this motivation of, yes, I have this great idea and I can build what I want. And sometimes code doesn't get in the way. And it also jumpstarts those who are coding and lets them really dig deeper and develop better programs and better apps with vibing.
And I love that because in my own experience as primarily a language educator, but for I think 9 years, also a STEAM educator, because the A with the arts and teaching French and Spanish when I first started teaching that course to 8th graders, I was teaching them for 2 years how to do some basic coding with a specific software, like with a robot. I was not very good at it. They were great, which was fine, but it was kind of hard to think like, oh, I have to be an expert about this, right? But you don't. And so then I third year got a little bit more confident. I was ready to dive in, and my principal said to me, we're going to shift that. What do you want to teach? And so I named all of these topics. And again, this probably 8 years ago, AI was on the list, digital citizenship, coding. I just the long list. And he wanted me to pick one. I'm like, no, I can't just pick one. But the one thing that has been very consistent throughout that course over all of these years is that I've had a lot of students who, whenever we get to that part where it is focused on coding, they're hesitant, they're afraid, they feel like they can't do it, they think it's not for them. I mean, the list, and I know that as an educator, you've probably seen this and heard this as well in your experience. But what has surprised me so much over the years and my students is that I've had students that say, I can't do this. I don't like this. And I said, okay, but you have to try it. Like, just see, you never know. It might spark some, interest or a future career. And I've had so many students come back and say, I still don't like it. And I go, but why? Because I figured out that I'm really good at it. I can do this. I enjoy it. And so it's interesting to see that transformation in students, especially when they can go at their own pace or they can choose what they want to create. So I know in my experience, I've seen such a transformation. I had students go on that are way beyond my skills, but I do love this vibe coding. And so the next question I have for you and anybody joining in is, so somebody is listening right now. We have a lot of people joining in and they're thinking, okay, vibe coding sounds really cool, but I have all of these other things to do. So what do they do to get started and how does everything kind of work? Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Sure. Well, the Hour of AI with Imagi has a partnership with Lovable, and Lovable is a platform that allows you to vibe code and also see the code. And you want me to share the screen and show them where to go? Sure. I'm just going to hijack that for a second. And this one. So on the Hour of AI, we have this great platform where they get started, and it's really simple. You can try Imagi, edu, create logins, and then the whole activity is directly in the setup. And with the students, it's very simple. They also just go to the login that's provided through the teacher platform, and they log in with the classroom code, and they also log in with usernames that have been prepared for them. And let me just jump over real quick to that. So we're going to do jumping screens for you guys. This is what I do to my students when I'm teaching a lot of the time. So have fun with it. So once you're into Imagi, it's really super simple. You have the whole setup right here where you can view your slides. And then you can open up Lovable directly from here. And you can also have your own username and password. Let me see if this switches with me. And let's go here. You see that screen? Yes, perfect. And this is what a typical classroom would look like in the Imagi platform. And you can click right in. I'm going to show you my secret keys here. I'm probably not a good tech person, but these are generic. They don't give you the password in there. But you can see that I've made, for my Imagi class, I've made actual usernames. But for the Lovable, you can turn on the access to Lovable, and you can go straight in and print your credentials in order to hand them out to the students. And they look similar to this kind of setup. That help explain a little bit? I didn't go all the way into it.
No, it definitely does, but it's nice for people to actually see what the layout looks like, and maybe they're not familiar and hadn't heard of like Imagi or Lovable. So that's hint number one is you have to dive into some of these, and we'll be sharing some links and resources with you if you're joining now, or if you sign up and join in later on and watch the recording, of course. But I'm curious, when you're looking at some of these different tools, especially when we're talking about AI, or any technologies for that matter, a big question that comes up is, data privacy. And there's a concern about students being safe in that environment, whatever they're using when it comes to technology. And what does this offer for anybody that does have that concern? Like, is it safe for students to use? Are there filters in place or anything like that that you can share?
Yeah, so it was quite fun. Beatrice and Dora asked me to trial this out before the hour of AI. That's a little secret I'm sharing right there. And one of the first things that we talked about was personal identifiable information. Being the AI person at my school, this is something that we take into account a lot. And what this allows, the Hour of AI and the Imagi Lovable connection, what they have done is they've made a platform that doesn't take you directly to the consumer platform. It takes you to a very clean platform that just has a login, and the logins are generated through the imagi.edu platform. So students do not have their names attached to it. I think one of them was like, I don't know, I'm making up words, Apple Hat Cat is the username, and then the password is also generated. And so I like this. Kids can explore. They're not openly sharing any information. The only information that is used is the teacher's signing. And so I used my school account, my school email account, and I've made my account through Imagi. So that's the only thing that's there. And then the teacher has access to give the students their passwords and
Okay.
usernames.
So that sounds like very, very
It's very,
reassuring.
it's very COPA, GDPR, everything that you can imagine. It's
That's
all there.
Yeah, that's for me, as we were talking when we first started about like all the different things that we do as educators, like I wear my educator hat, I wear the attorney hat, and I think like, and I do a lot with AI and the law, and I think about like, is it compliant with all the things we need to worry about? Because as we know in education, there are a lot of things we have to consider when bringing on these different tools, and data privacy and the safety of our students or anybody that's using them, that is really important. So it's good to know that you have this like classroom safe mode that is there. Another question for you. So somebody might be listening that thinks, oh, I'm teaching middle school math, or I'm teaching third grade and all the different content areas, and I don't know how to code. Do teachers need to have coding experience to get started with this?
No, I mean, I am a coder and I teach Python and my kids know Python, but no, they don't. We had sixth graders try this out because, well, my son's a sixth grader and I wanted him to try it out. So that's a little secret. And he hasn't had computer science yet. So he was quite successful. You do see that the kids that are gamers, or the kids or the teachers that are comfortable with just clicking buttons might find it a little bit easier to just start, but literally it's just a chat bot. Just like you would open Chat GPT or Gemini or Claude, there's a box and you just jump around in, and we can try to show this if I can get this going with all the screens if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great. And it's funny, I am the button clicker. Like I like to just go in and just start clicking all the buttons. Oh, what does this do? Because I think that's the fun thing. But people that are joining in, and some just said, oh, I just heard about this yesterday or recently. Like when you try this, you will be amazed. So yeah, please do. If you could take us through, an activity that maybe students might do in my classroom. If I were deciding like, hey, I want to try this during this week, I want to focus on Hour of AI. What does that look like?
Sure, let me get set up. I actually cheated and logged in before, and I'm really sorry, everyone, but it's just easier to manage
All
on
good.
my one screen. Okay,
Yeah.
so the this is the dashboard that you get into when you first open up the Imagi link, and it's just lovable.dev. When I go to a home screen, okay, if I start, I have my projects here. Okay. And we're just going to quickly look at this snake heart tic-tac-toe that I made. It had to be snakes because it's Python, and I had a lot of fun with the kids. And if you look, you see the first very poor, bad prompt I did was I want to make a tic-tac-toe game with small twists. And I want to make the X's to be Python snakes and the O's to be hearts. Now, the way that I taught this to the students was tic-tac-toe is a very common game. So the AI will know and will have tons of resources to pull up a tic-tac-toe game. So it generated a tic-tac-toe game quite nice. And then we went and we talked about doing a couple other things like what could we change to this? But it's literally that simple. So if you're a teacher who has never used AI or who has never coded, start with something small like a tic-tac-toe game before you try it out with kids, and you'll see how simple it is. So I can do more, but we're short on time. So I want to make sure I pop back to you each time.
Oh, no, like please show, because if you for different examples, for, as a language educator, like I can think of different things that I could use it for in my Spanish classroom, but also my STEAM class, of course, and have students create whatever they want to create, because it's so funny when I was saying before that some of the students are hesitant or nervous about coding or anything, or AI, anything related to that, but yet they are so invested in playing games and the apps. And I'm like, you do realize that somebody sat down and wrote the code for the game that you're playing or the app that you're using. Like that could be you. But for me, thinking about ways I can use as a language classroom, I could create a lot of different games for the students, and it's going to help them with the retention. They're going to learn about AI and the purposeful, meaningful, safe, responsible use of AI, which of course we want them to have. But anything that you want to share, I would love to see some different examples. And I know people listening would love to as well. So please feel free. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So I want to walk you through just a little bit of the lesson plan because I thought this was really great. Something that they produced from Imagi, and there it is. And so when you're on the Hour of AI website, you have access to lesson plans, teaching slides, how to set up, how to walk through troubleshooting. So it's all there. But what I like about this for people that have no strong understanding of code is that it gives you an idea of what you're going to do. In the Hour of AI, it talks a little bit about artificial intelligence. Now, if you're comfortable with artificial intelligence, you can expand on this, but you can go into the fact about everything with vibe coding and AI and just have a really nice conversation with the students. This is a tic-tac-toe game, which I used for mine. I like I said, I put a little twist right away because for me, an X and O was kind of not my personality, didn't show through. So I showed the kids how to do it with Python. But again, yes, the lesson goes all the way through. And what I want to show you, getting down to it, just is that they have this idea of the catching game, and it goes through this whole activity. But let me see where we move the slide to. It talks about building the prompt and the difference between a vague prompt and a detailed prompt. I find when I did this with the students, that we had a discussion, we wrote down and typed out our prompts, and then they shared it with others, students, to get feedback on the prompt, because we initially told them you only have 5 credits, and then OpenAI gave them credits. So my kids were like, wait, you said 5 credits and we have like hundreds. And I was like, shit, the secret. But anyways, they got their prompts going, really developing a thorough prompt. And because my students that I tried this with were all big time gamers, they knew things like, oh, we wanted it to pass through like in Minecraft, or we want to already keep a score. So we started having this conversation about what it is to be fun. And that's kind of how vibe coding and AI work, is having a clear communication and understanding of what you want to create. And the other thing that we talked about is drawing some of our ideas so we could draw out and better communicate. And let me get you to some did she take them all? We didn't put them up. I didn't put them on this slideshow. Hold on, it's on this one. But I wanted to show you some of my games. I had kids create so many fun things. They created, I have to show you. It's just not without it.
Yeah,
So
I'd love to
bear
see.
with me.
No, it's all good. I love to see because like as you're talking through some of the examples of things, like people might think, just they capture one thing like, oh, like that's a great idea, especially like at this time of the year when, we're heading into some breaks and so forth. People are looking for some new ideas. And this week with so much going on, this is a great activity to dive into and explore. And it does not take a ton of time, which I know is like the number one concern I hear from educators. It's like, there's never enough time, but there's totally enough time for
There's
this.
totally enough time. And this could be done anywhere. And so what the idea is, they gave you a game that said catch, let's catch numbers. But if you're doing Spanish, we can say, oh, we want to, I don't know, maybe you can catch the words or the fruit and you have to shout out the fruit in Spanish or something. I can think of maybe you want to do integers and floats or decimals or whole numbers, or I don't know, you can think of so many cool games. My kids, this is where the fun happened. They started with, we're mutating sort of like these numbers. And then they went a little bit crazy and they wanted a shark catch game. So some of them were fishermen. In fact, once someone said, let's do a fishing game, everyone started catching fish instead of little numbers. And then someone made a maze. And this one, an Arctic catch. So they had this idea of, we're going to use snow because Florida, we don't have snow. The Super Bowl ball. This was football. And then trading based on some of the games that they've played. One PS5. Minecraft tic-tac-toe. So they liked my idea of the tic-tac-toe with snake, and they made a Minecraft. The hurdle jump was quite a funny thing because they had this little stick man trying to jump over. Instead of catching balls, they said, well, why don't we run across the screen? This was kind of funny. Steal a brain rot. I don't think it got played a lot, but they got a little bit crazy and made three more games. Here's the fish game again. Air hockey pong. So let's just smush all kinds of games together and make it happen. I just have to warn you though, once they start creating it, it is a little bit of a free-for-all because then they can't stop. So make sure you put a focus. If you are a classroom teacher, you might want to put at least some sort of content or just have fun. This was, what's it, Mario Brother? Not Mario. Yeah, Mario, where they jump around.
Right.
And these two guys, there's two children, two coders. They were competing about who had the best. This was the stickman jump. And I don't know if you ever saw the free fall game where they had to jump and it was like a stickman that literally jumped up the stage and then it falls.
Yeah.
That was this one. And Terry is not the real name. They put a fictitious name there. And then in this one, it was really adorable. The project allowed them to make their own avatar, and they had different stick figures that changed all their colors. And it was similar to a VR avatar. And yeah, I could go on more, but these are the only ones that.
No, it's great to see, just to think about it. And you're right, like the students, once they get started, I remember this is years ago before we had access to this, but I had a student that, and I've told the story many, many times, but no matter what I did in that class, I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. And then we got to that one thing and it involved coding. And next thing you know, over the weekend, the following Monday, I had a call from the parent that said, I don't know what you're doing in that STEAM class. And I was nervous at first. I'm like, oh no, this doesn't sound good. But apparently the student had gone and created all of these different like games and things over the weekend, just in their spare time. And it wasn't an assignment or anything. They just like really enjoyed it and liked it and dove into it. And I was amazed, like, this is really awesome that you're doing this. So it's fun to learn from them. And, you don't have to be an expert. And so, realistically, if somebody, and we have a lot of people still joining in, so that's awesome. Thank you for your comments and for joining in. And please, after you viewed this, share it, get somebody else to sign up so they can dive into this week as well. But if somebody is watching this, how long realistically does it take to facilitate a lesson like that? And, do you have any tips that you could share for running it if somebody's saying like, you know what, I have just one 40-minute, 50-minute class period and I want to do this, but that's all the time I have. What advice could you give them?
I did it in 39 minutes. We have a short class. And so it's completely feasible. If you run through the entire PowerPoint and if you take a long time discussing one, it will take you longer. You can pick and choose. I do think it's important to get out the idea of what is vibe coding, what it is to make a great prompt, because this is a great opportunity to really embed AI literacy. But coming up with a great prompt, having the kids type it out is probably the thing that will take the longest if you don't have fast typers. But it takes maybe 30 seconds to, I would say, 1.5 minutes to generate the first app out of the text. So just then it depends on how fast the kids can create it. If you already have, and you just want to do this as a demo first, maybe you already have your prompt typed, you probably could cut it down to 30-35 minutes and just show them what the difference is between going through a vague prompt. But to be honest, getting the kids in there and just start playing, maybe give them an idea of a topic and say who can make the best game about the Roman history. Always try to come up with stuff. It really is not going to be that long of a time. My best tips for you guys, talk about vague prompts and talk about what makes a game fun, especially if you're going to do games. Talk about clear communication and making sure that the kids are saying what they want, and it's a lot easier when the kids sketch out, even if it's a rough draft, of what they're seeing in their heads, and then they can clearly communicate that. And besides that, I would just have fun. Show them where the code is. Some of the kids that are really into code would love to see the code in the background. Depending on what they create, it's going to change the code, and it's going to get someone hooked on coding, because as much as vibe coding is important, I think that we still need coders today. And even Anthropic came out with an article, that was today or yesterday, about how they need to hire more developers. So coding is important, even in the age of AI. And if this hooks a kid in coding, then we've done our job as educators, I think.
Yeah, I love that if it does hook them in. And yeah, we still need the humans, right? We need the humans to look at it. Nothing is perfect, and to analyze it and to tweak it. And the prompts, I love how before it was like the 5, and then because the benefit of that is they really have to think about like, oh, this didn't actually turn out the way that I wanted it to. So what do I have to change in my prompt? And I always say, whenever I'm working with students or educators, like everything, when you're using AI, it all comes down to the prompting. Like you have to master that skill, because that's how you're going to get the better output, or you're going to take so much extra time, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because they're still learning in that, it's that iterative process. And so, there was a question that came in. I did have one other question for you. So the slides that you're sharing, those are slides that they're your own slides, right? Your
No,
examples.
these are created by Imagi for you all. They have great products. I met Dora is through Python. They have other projects with the Imagi. So if you're interested in learning Python, you can also do that with the Hour of AI. They've got adorable keychain-like hardware. But yes, the slides are completely made. You can make a copy of it. And I edited mine a little bit because I wanted them to draw and I wanted them to work with a partner. But yes, it's all there. And it's just open the slideshow and just start having fun.
Yeah. And so would you mind, I know you have the slide that has like how everybody can get started with vibe coding. There's some fun things happening. So, teachers, students, you can use the activity with free credits all the way until the end of the year. and you can join. There's a competition. There's lots of great things, some
December
prizes.
23rd. December 23rd, I think, is the competition. My kids are on it. So if you want to beat them, you need to get on it too.
Yeah. So enter for a chance to win a Lovable and Imagi subscriptions and Amazon gift card. And we have some links here we're going to share with you. And you can reach out to the team, contact us, send emails, reach out to the Imagi team. They're great to respond, to support you. The resources are all there available for you. And I will put this on the bottom of the screen here so you can see it. And there we go. So you can go to that site. You can find a lot of great resources. Also, if you just happen to find us talking here today, there is a link that you can sign up to get the recording and the other resources that we will share as a follow-up. But Kelly, any other last thoughts or words or anything, inspiration that you would give to anybody who is listening?
Yeah, no, just give it a shot. Even if you have 1.5 weeks before Christmas break. So who wants to grade more essays and and computer science programs? Try Hour of AI. It's such a great program, and I think it's worth 30 minutes of your time.
I definitely agree. And hopefully this is actually showing on the screen. There we go. And that is, oops, sorry. I always hit the wrong one. It's the essay. There we go. So there you go. You got the link on the screen, how to dive in, pick an activity, and you just let the students go. They're creative. You don't have to be the expert. I certainly have said that so many times over the years. And Kelly, I want to thank you so much for joining in. Also, thanks to Imagi and the great team and this Imagi and Lovable making this possible, this cool vibe coding to get everybody interested, invested, and excited about coding, especially this week. But of course, beyond just this week, through this month, we want to keep moving that forward. To who knows? We are raising, I always say, the consumers to creators, to the innovators, and who knows, entrepreneurs as well. But thank you, Kelly, for joining in again, and for everybody else who's contributed your comments, your questions. And we hope that you have a great rest of the day. But before you get off of your computer, go to that site and get started now. Take a couple minutes and dive into vibe coding. So thanks for joining, everybody. We'll catch you the next time.
Bye.